welcome, sir. I'd like to invite on stage the country manager, IBM West Africa, Mr. Dikpo Faulkner. Can we have a round of applause for him, please? Thank you. And the last member of this panel that will be talking on data as a national critical infrastructure is the managing director of Accenture, Mr. Niyi Yusuf. Can we have a round of applause for him, please? I would like to invite Mr. Ayotunde Koka, the MD of RAC Center, to give his opening speech.
Excellent, thank you very much. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, rather. It's been a great morning, and it still feels like it's morning, I guess. And we're delighted at RAC Center to be hosting this session. Data as a critical national infrastructure. Intentionally don't have a set of slides because there's a lot of context to pick on what has been discussed so far, and that then goes into some high-level points that we'll then use as the main anchor points for the discussion here today. And we think holistically, so on balance between the previous panel session we had and the one we have now, I think we have fantastic gender balance if we take a holistic approach. Nevertheless, the issue about data is a big one. It's increasing and it's going to hit us somehow. This morning, Sir Aladekomo talked about a lot about what's going to be happening with virtual reality, in context. We talked about, with Vodacom, we talked about Internet of Things. We've talked about also cloud services and so on. What's happening here is that in the world, the volume of data is increasing exponentially. We're actually going not towards terabytes, but the petabytes of data as a standard. And that's hitting us. Now, if we're also talking about the fact that we have to automate to grow, okay? Now, the history of IT systems and telephony and so on shows that if you have unreliable IT systems, it loses credibility and people therefore do not use those systems. That's one. Two, actually the implications of unreliable IT systems could be quite significant. So imagine this scenario as you start to depend much more on IT. And in health, for instance, we used health as an example. And as you're about to go through some critical health activity that's dependent on IT, the IT systems go down. Just imagine also through an operation, something happens and the doctor then says, I need very, very critical access to the patient's data so I can make the right decision with respect to what I'm doing with this, because we're automating everything now. We're now an interconnected society. Just bear that in mind and the system goes down. Fintech, it's the same thing in fintech. Banks are dependent on IT. When the IT goes down, the bank goes down. When the bank goes down, the implication of fraud, I used to be a bank CIO. The word gets around that the bank IT systems are down. People start going into the branches and cashing out money they have twice, 3 times over. By the end of a 4-hour outage, you could have yourself 4, 5, 6, 7 billion naira of unsecured loans, unsecured positions that actually now you have to go and try and recover if you actually even know where it went to. And it's not just the public, it's also staff that will now know that my activities cannot be traced. Okay? So these are examples of the implications of having unreliable IT systems. Couple that with the fact that we now have big data hitting us in a significant way, and we have to hold this data somewhere. What we've been doing so far is holding this data actually in foreign data centers. Data centers hold IT systems, they hold the storage facilities, that hold the data that we use to run the systems that we rely on, so people don't die, and we don't have these implications. So there's a dependency. Businesses now run on IT. Even taxis, we talk about Uber, we flogged that a lot, with respect to Uber. And if your Uber app goes down and you're out, depending on Uber, this happens actually sometimes. You can't get through and you're kind of stuck, but you've got used to depending on that. Why? What's happened? Something may have actually happened in the telco chain somewhere because some system went down, and that means your Uber app actually doesn't work. So you start to question that. So there's a hierarchy of dependency. The business systems that the CEOs depend on these applications and ERPs and so on, that these days we depend on, not necessarily built in-house on cloud. Those systems depend on the network and the interconnectivity of those networks that depends on the servers they sit on somewhere, and also, of course, down to the data centers they sit in and to power. So there's some fundamental thing here. If you don't have power and you don't have your data centers operating 100% of the time, a lot of this stuff that we've been discussing today about how we will transform Nigeria and all of that stuff really is not a starter. So we have to do certain things to underpin everything we do to create reliable IT and also to create reliable customer experience. Because it's one thing having your systems available, it's another thing to have the interconnectivity you have across those systems not working, or they're slow. Because if they're slow, they're not fast enough, it's horrible customer experience. And I can give you an example even in banking. If your ATM doesn't work, what do? You go to the bank that the ATM works. And if the other bank, the ATM works constantly, suddenly you move even if your company has done a deal to have your salary account in one bank, you'll sweep it. And that's the reality of it. And it's the same thing with the telcos. And I have a prediction with telcos. Everything is now data. You all use your WhatsApp, over-the-top applications, and so on, okay? Voice is becoming increasingly history. Not because we don't do voice, because the way we deliver voice has changed, okay? Now you buy your data. What would you rather have? Now, really, honestly, on the phone, would you rather have your phone doing voice without data? Or would you rather have good, high, reliable, high-speed data that you can download and upload your pictures and do your Facebook and use your WhatsApp or Skype or whatever else Zoom that you choose to use? It's data. So when you're delivering data, the demand for data is the future. You require significantly heavier lifting IT systems. But we also know that in the marketplace, now the minister mentioned the fact that we need more efficient investment efficiency for IT to be invested in the front end of the business, okay? So imagine if you were running a telco and suddenly everyone's coming to you to say, we've got so much data, everyone's using data, we need to build our IT systems, we need to double the size of our data center, it's going to cost us another $20 million. And your CFO is saying, well, hang on, but we've got $20 million that the marketing people and the business people say we need to invest in the front end of the business where we're earning money from. What would you do? You're going to have to find a solution. And that's where co-location comes in, and that's what Rack Center does. And not only do we have a data center co-location where you have shared services so you can scale, and scale as the environment and the ecosystem needs, you need to have it reliable. If we're going to attract international companies here, we have to have data centers that are reliable and they can trust to bring, well, we have homegrown systems here, or that they know they can actually bring their own systems here too. So Rack Center is wholly owned by Jagal. We went live in October 2013. And the mission really was to deliver mega data center capability at world-class reliability. And that's something we've achieved. We've been running 100% without 1 second of downtime since launch. despite a lot of the issues we say we have with power. So I got asked once, talk about the challenges of power in Nigeria and so on and the problems it gives you. And I said, actually, we're a power company. But on the way, the power issues also plays into the proposition we offer, because we have the deep expertise to deliver consistent power plus all of the technology that's required, which means that anybody here who wants to go and build a data center or a telco, because the demand for data centers is now so high, would better collocate it elsewhere, and that's what we therefore offer. So right now we started with around about 119 racks. I just use racks as a scale. We use power as well. We doubled and went live last year to 260 racks, and within the next 8 months we're going to be doubling again to 600 racks. And our trajectory in the location where we are in Oregon is to grow to 3,000 racks with 8.5 megawatts of power, just IT. So we'll actually be generating around about 12 megawatts of power where we are. Interconnectivity. We're carrier neutral. That means we're not a carrier. That means that all of the carriers actually trust that in partnering with Rack Center, we're not going to be competing with them. So you'll hear people talk about carrier neutral data centers. That's what it means. So we've built over the years the most interconnected environment that's available here. Over 25 carriers in situ, and all of the telcos, and all of the main ISPs. So you now have an environment can be interconnected, telcos can decide to cross-connect, and so on and so forth. But primarily for our customers, they know that once they come in, they have a whole range of network providers that they can hook into. The other issue here that I talked about on quality is this. Globally, there's a body called the Uptime Institute. The tier 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the quality of the data centers. Really, tier 3 is the highest commercially sensible tier, the highest tier. Tier 4 is particularly more expensive, but for very specialist defense types of solutions. So you can have at tier 3 your design documents validated and certified, or you can then have the constructed facility certified, or your operational processes validated that they meet world class. The important thing about it is it's an indisputable global known standard of quality. So anybody in the world knows if you have that, you're as good as anywhere else in the world. So we went with the first step to have design certification in 2014, the first in sub-Saharan Africa. We have a few design certified data centers in Nigeria now. But critically, earlier this year, we were the first co-location facility that's carrier neutral in Africa to achieve the constructed facility certification. So that lights a beacon on Nigeria to say we have what is world-class here to deliver quality hosting capability that's also interconnected. And because we're connected to all of the undersea cables, we connect Africa. Every single country on the West Africa Atlantic coast, rather the Atlantic coast, is directly connected. So within 50 milliseconds for the technical minded of Rack Center, connectivity speed, we connect about 500 million people. So where would you go if you're in Africa and you want to connect Africa? So I'm pulling this back into the context of what we talked about before. It's important that we have facilities like that. It's important that we make it world-class. So not only do we deliver for capability here, reliable capability to run our IT ecosystem, we also reassure foreign companies that if you host in this environment, it's validated indisputably to be as good as anywhere else in the world. So now we can start our journey towards IoT, because you host it somewhere that's reliable. You can start the journey towards cloud. Now, cloud is very, very important, because in the old days, you'd go and build your own IT systems and buy your servers and build a data center. I mean, when I first was group CIO at Access Bank, I had to build a data center. There was no rack center. I didn't want to do it. It was a waste of time. It was a waste of capital, tier 1 capital. And you had to work hard to have the skills to sustain it. So you collocate, okay? Now, with cloud, what you're doing is a shared service. You all have Hotmail. You don't have to buy servers to get your Hotmail or and so on. You now have private emails, and lots of companies will run cloud services from, from IBM, cloud services from Rackspace, and so on. We say we're the Equinix of Africa because that's what we put in place. Cloud is very important because cloud providers are designed to scale very, very quickly. Build another module on the data center. That's what you do. Now, if you're a small business and you want access to IT, you don't have the capital to buy all these servers and build all these things. So cloud is going to reduce significantly the entry point of computing services to SMEs, okay? You don't have to go to Amazon Web Services, it's right on your doorstep. You don't have to pay for the latency and the performance issue of going up to some data center in the US. It's here right on your doorstep. And with that, SMEs become more efficient, even corporates and all versions of corporates. In Nigeria, we have 20 million SMEs. That's more than the population of Belgium and Netherlands added together. So if you now look at the professional SMEs, okay, the engineering firms, the architectural firms, the accountancies, and so on, that's a significant number that therefore need those services. So in home growing those services, we're underpinning the potential growth of the infrastructure and the economy in the country. And our intention actually is to make that a West Africa thing. So going back to the context that we've set today with respect to Internet of Things, with respect to significant growing data, with respect to the fact that we need high quality, with the fact that actually we create a technology ecosystem. This is why I say that what we have going here underpins all of those things. And finally, around the impact on the economy. There's been studies shown in the Netherlands and in the UK and in the US that for every $10,000, for every $10 million you spend on core infrastructure, you actually have a systemic impact on GDP from 10-fold to 100-fold, depending on the ecosystem issues you have. So if you just take 10-fold. So if somebody invests $100 million in this core infrastructure, the impact on the GDP due to a variety of things on employment, on enabling other SMEs, enabling other companies, delivering reliable IT that drives an efficient economy is going to be anything from $1 billion to 10 billion. If you relate that to how much we earn in oil a year, you will then see why the minister was highlighting the importance of technology to the transformation of our economy. And a little economic fact, we need to grow 3% a year just to stand still. Because by not growing 3% a year, we're eroding our per capita income, even though we're the largest economy in Africa. So we have to pull everything together to make sure we're able to go at 5% minimum, but really we need about 8 to 10% minimum to achieve what we're able to achieve, to be able to sustain the number of the populations that Alade Koma showed earlier on for where we'll be in 2014. So I hope that's given some of the context to what big data means to us, why RAC Center is here, what we do, and why we say we're carrier neutral, and what it means to actually be constructed facility certified. It sets a bar, and we're happy with that bar, that people know that in Africa we're able to deliver the kind of cloud services that are required. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tunde. That was very comprehensive and no notes. How do you do it? There was no auto cue. So excellent. Please give him another round of applause. I told you this session will be entertaining. So I want to put some perspectives on this. He mentioned a couple of areas, my dear panelists: intelligent, diversified panelists. Big data, that's a big one. We got someone on the panelists who can speak to that. Virtual reality, Internet of Things, then this generating not only terabytes, but petabytes of information. I remember when we were talking about kilobytes, megabytes, now petabytes. Can anyone count those? But anyway, it's money. Data is the new black gold, apparently. So you then talked about automation. We've been automating things for years and years, right from control systems and now into IT. So that one I can relate with. But I think the important thing was the patient data and how critical and personalized that data is becoming to your everyday average person. And then you sort of touched on, risk management. You know, that's the reliability of data is equally important. And I think the bit that I think that we should really address is offshore versus onshore. You know, there's issues about latency, which you touched on, and I'm sure that our colleague from the NSC might have views on how much latency we should be able to have in Nigeria to ensure that stock trading becomes a reality in this country. And I think my favorite is, you said voice is now old age, or we could say it's commoditized, because we have the OTT players, we have the Facebooks, the Amazons of the world, the Netflix and Google. And you know that what it's doing to the revenue streams of some of the old age telcos. As you were talking, I put down some figures about what Microsoft was doing globally, and I think they recently announced a $30 billion investment. Part of it's going to South Africa, so why hasn't it come to Nigeria? That would be an interesting one. And then I know that Google and Apple, I mean, each one of them is capitalized at greater than $500 billion. So you can imagine the massive wealth they have to change what is essentially now no longer a voice-centric play, but a data-centric play, and it speaks to a data-centric economy. The bit about certification, I know that I have amongst my panelists someone who's actually had a data center for eons and probably would argue that, yes, it's good to have certification, but there are other factors that we should also take into account. And I don't want to list product names or your competitors, but you were graceful to acknowledge that there were other tier 3 providers. But congratulations on getting the constructed certification. I think that's a first in West Africa. So congratulations on that. We have 30 minutes. You know, it's very tight, and this topic, I'm just warming it up, and I want the audience to also answer questions. So I'm going to be a bit guided. Sorry, if you don't mind, panelists. I have to guide you a little bit so that, because today took 30 minutes or I only took 20 seconds. So I'll start off with the MD of Accenture. Just please, if you could just tell us a bit about your views on the importance of infrastructure, the experience on consulting with clients in this space, please not on other areas, but just this particular space. And then one interesting thing is that, what's your view on the direction of the African cloud? I like that piece, you know, just to share so we can have some other things to talk about. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Our experience working with clients around infrastructure. You know, typically we always say that Nigeria and many countries in sub-Saharan Africa are developing, and we measure the level of development by a number of things, and part of that is the level of infrastructure that you have in those countries, be it physical road, be it telecoms infrastructure, be it social infrastructure like health, education, and of course, of recent now, be it technology-related infrastructure. Now, to the extent that we are coming from behind and we don't have those world-class infrastructure, the way we tend to say it is that it provides an opportunity for us to leapfrog. So we don't have a lot of the legacy issues to worry about, and we can start from the way Rack Center and Co have started in data center, to start from being a tier 3 instead of having to walk from tier 1, tier 2 up to tier 4. And so in our work with the banking industry, central bank and the commercial banks, we understood that the availability of infrastructure, the reliability of that infrastructure, the quality and the cost effectiveness of the infrastructure goes a long way in determining the service quality that commercial banks render to their clients in Nigeria. Especially now that everything is going digital and we are talking e-business, e-banking, etc. And so based on that, working with the banking industry, we came up with some standards to guide the level of infrastructure that should be in the industry. And specifically for data center, we agreed that this should be tier 3. Now that is transformational. You're coming from a situation where you had nothing in place and you just want to leapfrog. And I guess that's the benefit of starting late, which means you can start better, which means you also can learn from the lessons of others. Now, in those various conversations, it's clear that the CIOs are concerned about, will this work? We've never done it before, so why should I trust that we'll get it done? Would this be a case of NEPA, PHCN? You know, you have the towers, but you don't have the power supply. Or would this be another flash in the pan? You know, company will come and then they will disappear overnight. And of course, issues around privacy. Would my data from Bank A be available deliberately or otherwise for Bank B to use? So those are the initial concerns. But in terms of, does this make business sense? I think everybody accepted. Would this be cost effective? Everybody also accepted. Is this the general line of direction? Everyone accepted. And so the compromise was that each bank typically will have a production and a disaster recovery center. So let's start with the disaster recovery. Let's put that in the hands of this non-bank third party. Let's see if they will do it well. Let's see if they will mess it up. And if they do it well, then that provides some comfort that can then get the industry to say, okay, now that we've tested you with this small bit, we've seen that you are trustworthy, you can be reliable, now let's give you the real production systems. And so that was a strategy that was agreed in 2015 thereabout. But today, a number of the commercial banks have actually put their production systems in some of these third-party centers. Because what we've seen is that Nigerians, when we set out to do something, we can be very successful despite the environment, despite the challenges. And that's what we've witnessed. So really, it's not been that difficult convincing people. I think it's been, the more challenging part has been in establishing those facilities and getting them to be world-class. But I'm encouraged by what we've seen in the last few years.
Thanks for that. And I think your reference to trust is an important piece, because I have had personal experience where I think even right now it's still the tendency is that people want to duplicate effort. And if we're talking about tier 3 data centers, in your estimate, it would cost about 10 million, 20 million, maybe $30 million per facility. I mean, I'm just trying to get some. I mean,
our thoughts were that this would be between $7 to $10 million.
Okay.
But you see, what has also then helped is the fact that when we're having these conversations in 2014, there was no FS crisis, and you know everybody could be a bit difficult to accept. But then, fast forward, 2015, we started having those crises. 2016, it was a huge crisis. So really, there's no CIO that will go to a bank CEO and say, yeah, give me $10 million and let me put it in this. No.
No, I think that I was leading you there, and you're totally correct. I wouldn't anyway. And I don't think, are there any CIOs around who's recently got $7-10 million from their CEO to build another data center? It might make Tunde unhappy if he hears there's another data center coming up being built by the CEO, his clients. But on that point, sorry, I just need you to pass the mic just slowly towards a very important client, the NSC man. Good afternoon to you, sir. One of the areas I just wanted you to help us just elaborate a bit on is what is NSC doing offering services to brokers in the market? in particular pertaining to all that you've heard about data centers being here, and I know that you're very happy with Rack Center, but are there specific services that you are now rendering to your brokers just because you're using Rack Center?
Good afternoon, everybody. I look after the market services department for the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And one of the key things we do as part of our daily operations is to actually make sure that not just the brokers, but investors as well can actually access their market information, buy, sell, check the status of their investments, and so on and so forth. I think if you look at the NSC and say that the NSC is a company, what would be the main product would actually be providing? And the main product really will be our data. As an investor, all you need to know is like, how many shares do I have? Where is the stock market going? Is it going up? Is it going down? My investments, have I got dividends? Is the company doing well? Are there any corporate actions? So on and so forth. And this is all data-driven. So the key thing for us is data and how we secure that data. And we need to make sure that, especially within the Nigerian context, where you have the issues with power, you have the issues with connectivity with your internet, so on and so forth, you need to have a backup in place. So if one goes down, you have something else. So what have we done in that respect? The NSC built its own data center, but we needed a backup place as well. So we actually did quite an extensive survey of what's available in the market. And we actually thought that best value for money in terms of the regulatory conditions we have as well, we couldn't go offshore. We had to stay local. Because believe it or not, your data can't actually leave the shores of Nigeria. So we need something locally. I need to keep it somewhere where it's reliable as well, and you don't have these issues that there's going to be no power, or your service provider can't actually hook up to your DR, so on and so forth. So we went for Rack Center. And in fairness to Tunde, it hasn't gone down. We've had 100% availability. We say it as it is. We've used quite a few providers, and in Nigeria, talk is cheap. The proof really is in the pudding. So if you get a good service, we scream about it. If we get a bad service, we'll scream about it as well. It's not a religion. For our brokers, their main business is to actually go out there and talk to investors. So as far as we're concerned, we make their life as easy as possible. That means providing them with the tools, with the technology for them to actually be able to do their core business. Their core business is not, going out there and doing their back office reconciliation. Their core business is actually looking for investors. So we've come up with new technology, order management systems, whereby the investor can actually stay at home, use your tablet or your PC or your phone, whatever, to actually check your balances. We create that technology for them. We also go as far as making sure that in terms of them having some sort of cloud service where they can actually store their data, store their information. We partner with other good companies within Nigeria like HP, IBM, EMC, to name a few, to make sure they provide us that technology that actually supports the sort of outreach we need them to do. So we offer services, shared services, especially now with the cloud actually up and coming, so that at least they can trade from anywhere as an investor. For the broker-dealers themselves, we actually make sure their whole back office is actually automated, so they have fewer and fewer problems. And again, it's all about cost as well. You come in at a cost competitive price. So we don't say that your broker or your dealer, he's just eating your money, servicing his infrastructure. At the exchange, we are trying to provide that infrastructure, so it makes everybody's life a lot more easier. And I think over the past 4 years that we've been here, we've actually succeeded in doing that. And again, your data is accessible. At the exchange, we can't go down, we can't have a blackout. We're not like a bank where you can go offline. If you're trading, you're trading. And we're talking about nanoseconds here. So for you to get the best price at the right time, you need to make sure you have a reliable network you need to make sure you have a reliable source where your data is actually secured as well. And I think we've kind of accomplished that with our partnership. And again, it's great to have an industry or a venue which is actually based in Nigeria, so at least we can actually grow the local talent as well. Because it's not just about using all these international firms. We need to start growing our own resources locally. Yeah? I hear people say that we're 10 years behind, but guess what? We can do it today because technology enables you to actually get there. Yeah? So it's like, I always say when we talk about South Africa, that's the leader. I thought, hell no. Nigeria, we're coming. We have the knowledge, we have the ability, we have the capacity, and we have the will to do it. Thank you.
That was a speech for Nigeria. I respect you, my brother. Before I pass it to my South African brother beside you, I don't want to fight, so please, the MD of IBM, just to let the temperature go down, then we pass it to our South African brother. Please, IBM's viewpoints on cloud infrastructure, and more in particular, the emphasis on the market view on the willingness to outsource. Please, thank you. Just your views on that.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. For most people, it starts with the essence of IBM. Most of the older guys here would know IBM for our technology inventions, our mainframe systems, and our server systems. And that's all they know about IBM. Each time I introduce myself to people at IBM, they talk to me about typewriters, about mainframe computers, and I mean, it's amazing. I can't recall using mainframe computers, maybe while I was in school, and that's been it, to be honest with you. Our focus over the years has moved on significantly from that to cognitive solutions and cloud platform systems. That is our focus. That's where we are as a business. And from that essence, it just tells you the importance of those two areas for us as IBM. What we've done is, a couple of years ago, there was a lot of noise around analytics, which is basically driving insight from historical data. We moved from there to not only driving insight from historical to current data, as well as predicting trends for the future. And that's why cognitive comes in. For us at IBM, we believe that is the way to go. But those cognitive solutions can't be solutions that you buy the way you buy them in the past. These solutions must also be pruned and be ready for cloud. Gone are the days where you want to buy a software asset and you need to send, and people need to send CDs to you. You go to the training, the learning around the solution, you deploy the solution, and you start to run them. In today's world, almost all our solutions are cloud-enabled. The idea being, we've also built centers of excellence behind those solutions so that your take-on of those solutions are a lot more rapid than they would have been in the past. Because not only are you able to access immediately, you're also accessing a wealth of knowledge and experience behind those solutions that brings you up to speed very, very quickly. Also, we're providing cloud platform solutions, just like I mentioned. We've got a huge number of data centers globally. Our data centers host some of the top, I'd say top 50, 100 Fortune companies in the world, and they provide real service, to them. We're also in partnership with some local providers, as you would see, based on some things Tunde also talked about. We're in conversations with Rack Center and Min One as well around some local provisioning and local services here. We believe that aside you having cognitive capabilities, you must have a cloud strategy as well that thinks through what you need to own, what you need to warehouse, what you need to share, and where they need to be. Of course, taking into consideration reach, as well as access as very, very key to those.
Thank you. Before I let you off the hook, because NSC man said that we have bright Nigerians, everything should be local. I've been dying to ask this question. When is IBM going to put Center of Excellence in Nigeria? You put one in Kenya, I'm annoyed. I want one in Nigeria. When?
This looks like a follow-on question from
Yes,
recent interaction. Not a problem. We don't have one here, but that doesn't mean that we don't believe in the market. If you look at IBM investment in the market today, you realize that IBM truly believes in this market and we continue to do what is right in the market. So a couple of things. One is we don't have a center of competence, but we have an innovation center. It's a world-class innovation center. It's one of its kind, and it's in Nigeria. When there was a decision to locate that, it was shown between a research center and a location center, and an innovation center. And we got the innovation center while Kenya got the research center. We're doing a lot to increase the knowledge base in Nigeria. Most of our services and solutions are done through our business partners. Our route to market is not direct, it's through our business partners. And we do a lot to enable our business partners from training, from time to time, to the point where they will be able to operate and service our end customers on their own. So we now have the support center of excellence here, but we're introducing a lot of enablement to make sure that our local business partners can operate on their own and be very effective with their clients. And our clients are here to showcase that and to prove that.
Okay, no, thanks for that. Richard, please, 2 areas I want you to just share with us. Your views on the operations of co-location and the quality of infrastructure, and more importantly, your views on the tier certifications. Obviously, that dictates quality of hosting. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. So, IS is primarily, I mean, we started our business here as a multinational provider. So what that means is we've got a lot of clients in South Africa, based in South Africa or based in Europe, and they're looking for services in Nigeria. So we started data center services here back in 2006, but you know, when it came to making that decision about do we build or do we buy for our clients, we actually decided to buy. So we partnered with Rack Center, and the quality that they provide is actually, it's top class. So in its services, a lot of those multinational clients that's looking for that tiered data center facility. It services their needs, and we've actually seen a lot of uptake in clients hosting locally. So they're coming into the Nigerian market, they're putting their services and their servers and their solutions and their data, they're putting it down in the local Nigerian market. So, you know what, I'm not going to get into the whole South African versus Nigeria thing because that's a whole different debate. But, you know what, we're right on top there. So from a Nigeria perspective, you know, the services are excellent, and it's attracting the local clients, it's attracting international clients, and it's world class.
What's your views on Terraco? Just to keep you talking. And don't forget the certification, please, yeah?
Yeah, okay, so I think, you know what, so let's look at Terraco and, well, let's park Terraco for a minute. Let's look at the certification. You know, part of the whole thing about certification is, and this is a personal opinion, is I believe that there's different markets, all right? There's different clients, there's different markets. You've got clients that through their governments or governance and their risk requirements require a tiered service, all right? So they are willing to pay that extra, the extra premium or the premium for it, and they're buying the quality. But there's also a market that is, we don't really have that tier requirement. So, and secondly, we don't have the money for it. So there is a secondary market that is, you know, guys that are willing to pay a little bit less but expect something similar. Are they going to get the tiering? No. So I do believe that there's 2 markets. There's a tiered market and there's a non-tiered market. And, you know, at IS, we offer a non-tiered service, but we offer a tiered service through our partnership with Rack Center. So, you know, and like I said before, it's catering for both local as well as international clients. So it really is working well.
Thanks for that. Just to close up, and before we hand over to the floor, Tunde, just a question, and just give me 1 minute, or you've already taken 30, yeah? In terms of this certification, what has it taken to achieve it?
Very quickly, the analogy is this: if you were building a house, you go to the architects and you got standards of build that you have to adopt. You can actually take the design and then start to build a house, and well, time pressures, cost pressures, some compromises come in and so on, and you build a house and it's there. That the fact that that's met the certification of the design is a point of opinion. until that house is then recertified to say the physical construction is actually constructed certified. So that's really the analogy of this construction certified. So it gives a tick in the box that the proof of the pudding is actually there. Okay? Now, in what is taken to achieve it, these people absolutely take you apart. If you're not 101% there, you think you're 100% there, you do your tests and everything before they then come over. They're from the US and I think maybe they split it so they could look at you from different angles, you know. And it's a detailed, very forensic, very thorough assessment of absolutely everything. So if you say I have a fridge that's this kind of capacity to cool and everything, they'll open the fridge, they'll ignore your own temperatures, they'll check the temperatures, they'll pull the back off the fridge just to make sure it's got, you know, that kind of forensic assessment. So if you have any little thing that's missing, then you'll be found out. So, and then we then realize, I mean, we're delighted to go through it. And it also checks out your own responsiveness and your technical skill sets, because you won't just sail through 100% tick. They'll find certain things that you have to be able to respond to, and it shows your engineering capability to deal with what you need. Because if you've got to go to Germany to get your partners to come in or whatever, then once they're gone, they're gone. So that's what is taken to get the tier facility. And then I realized that anybody gets it is hats off. But what did it mean for us? One, it's for us to know actually what we had in place, and because what we aspire to and intend to do. And so when you're talking to global providers and so on, and say, we're going to send our experts to now go take a look at it, and say, well, that's fine. It gives you the reassurance that, yes, let them come over. But also for our customers, there's an indisputable validation of tier capability. I really do hope we have other tier certified, constructed certified data centers here, because it's good for us. The narrative around Nigeria is the fact that not just one, but we're able to achieve it multiple times. We've done an analysis of the addressable marketplace. And the capacity there that is built out right now is below what is the addressable marketplace. The trick is we have to unlock that marketplace and educate the marketplace in terms of what's available, and not just here locally in Nigeria, internationally. And finally, we live in a world ecosystem. We can't just close down and be parochial and say, oh, everything is here delivered only from Nigeria and everything. Of course, I'm saying that we can deliver world-class international services. But see, in this ecosystem, you know, the data is held here. You might need to interact with some cloud services elsewhere, not necessarily just here in Nigeria, but in Africa or elsewhere in the world. But that, you know, you have at least the baseline that allows you to do that, and the credibility to, we're building local competency. We actually have locally produced cloud capability. You can host websites here by local providers, you know. Now, you don't have to go to GoDaddy anymore. You can do it here, really you can. And local providers, Nigerians. You know, we'll get some other international players in, but it'll then become a good mix, because I think if those players come in, it'll also raise the bar for the people we have.
Thank you for that. And right on cue, we have 5 minutes just for questions from the floor, please. There's one gentleman there. There's several hands, but you know I'm going to be biased. So I'm going to start off with. Oh, you need the mic. Start with.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Benga Adebayo. I represent the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators. I'm impressed by what I've seen the data hosting companies done, but I'm a bit concerned about the security of your market. I say so because if you don't have the protection for local content, we may have a situation where you have done so well in terms of infrastructure, but there's no legislation protecting you, mandating local companies from patronizing your services. Therefore, my call to the panelists this afternoon is that we need to begin to push for legislation for local content, particularly in terms of hosting data that are locally generated in the local data hosting companies. I think that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Sunday Afangimo. I'm a radio site technician. And part of my question has been touched a little by my fellow comrade in terms of securing data, local data. However, I want to direct it to Mr. Ade, the NSC marketing officer. In your operations, how do you ensure that while you're trying to enhance real-time transaction of data, how do you ensure that data is protected in between you and the data center so that it doesn't get into the wrong hands during transmittal of data? That is one. And secondly, to the IBM boss, you talked about you having an innovation center here in Nigeria and a research center in. How does that affect the youth in the streets, the local talents? What plans are you making to attract and exploit this local talent, considering the high level of unemployment in the country, so that, your operations, considering while you're trying to do business on big data, the youth on the street is having money in his pockets, so he can smile to the bank. Thank you.
Okay, in terms of what we do at the NSC, my data is encrypted. It's my data unless I actually give you access to it, period. We use a protocol, it's called FIX, which means the Financial Information Exchange Protocol. So if you want to get my data, you first of all have to come to me. We sit down, I give you an agreement, which means that I know who I'm giving my data to. You tell me if you're going to redistribute it. If you are, I charge you. For you to actually get access to the data, you have to come to me. You need to tell me what system you're going to use to access the data. You give me your port number. I open up the port. We test it. They can receive it. I encrypt it on my end. I give you the decryption code at your end. And that's when we do that test, we know you can actually get the data. For those who are actually based in Nigeria, I give you a discounted price because we're locals. For those of you abroad, like the Reuters, your Bloomberg, whatever, I charge you. And I charge you not my rate, but the international rates. We will always support our own, period. The data is made here, the companies are here, everything we do is here. So you're asking for information about what we generate in Nigeria. So for those of you who are consuming it locally, you get a consumable or local price, which I think is fair. For external parties who want to see what's going on inside Nigeria, then please, you pay the premium for it. No offense. And that's how it works everywhere else. My data as well, I tell all the brokers, is like the data should not be stored on Amazon, should not be stored anywhere else outside of Nigeria, because it's local data. I don't know about other government institutions, but for the NSC itself, our data resides within our country, and that's the way it should be. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take the Innovation Center one first. The Innovation Center is not built to enable the skills of the youth. It's built to develop solution services, advanced solution services, to enhance our clients' businesses. That's what it's meant for. In terms of skills enablement, we've got a couple of programs, and I'll just touch on two of them. One of them is we've got a partnership with Nigerian universities, where we made available our software solution assets into Nigerian universities at no charge to them. We go the extent of training, both students and faculty members, and also do certifications for them. The essence of certifications to know who's learned what, and those certifications are also made available for them to pick up jobs in the local market when they come out. So that's one. Second is we're launching a more reaching skills enablement program that will take part in Nigeria and for most part of Nigerians in the last quarter of the year. Watch out for that space. Thank you.
Okay, before we take two more questions, I wanted to answer the lady SME and data. I think that, madam, you have the choice. Customer is king. If you see someone increase price, you have a choice to go to another provider of data. But on the general theme, I think where you're going to is definitely the regulator. NCC is looking at the issue of prices and data, and we can't comment on the outcome until their report is out. Thank you.
I would like to stand on existing protocols. My name is Clifford Agugwesi. I represent Africa Telecom and IT magazine. My question goes to the RAC Center MD. If I got you right, sir, what you're telling this audience is that you are comfortable with more players coming in and doing the same thing you're doing. If that's correct, how is this going to help you improve on your performance, and what is the impact this is going to have on your bottom line? That's one question. The second question I would like to ask is, your affiliation to Jagal seems to be, to me, an advantage and a disadvantage as well. Advantage side is that perhaps you are having the advantage of first comer, and so that affiliation, by way of power, the impact it has on your business is helping you now. But do you think, and this is the area I look at it from the negative side, do you think you will do better when you are hooked to the national grid? That is, you are no more talking about generators or whatever. How do you see this impacting on your business? And if we were to factor in competition, would you say you're performing better now, or you perform better under hooking with the national grid? This is my question, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good questions. You know, if we're in a market, we could say, well, wouldn't it be nice to be a monopoly? Yes. You know, and therefore you set the prices, demand, and so on. We're the highest quality, I can say that right now. It's indisputable, it's validated, okay? And we strive for that, because one of the things I say to my team and also shareholders is that if we establish ourselves as a Coca-Cola, even if a Pepsi comes in, we will continue to be a Coca-Cola. And we will do everything we do to chart our own way with respect to being the best we can and the best we should, okay? And we'll always do that. With respect to being part of Jagal, we're proud to be part of Jagal. We're proudly Nigerian. We're totally African. We've got good global recognition as a reference point for Nigeria. And it's also a mantra we kind of live to. But you see, being part of Jagal is a Nigerian company, fully Nigerian company. We're a fully Nigerian company. And they stand for world class. They're top 8 in ExxonMobil's global assessment for quality and safety. It's good parentage to have, but actually I also get left to run the business with my team because it's a diversified conglomerate, okay? And that is what we also therefore focus on. So we always say we're part of Jagal, we're proudly part of Jagal, and Jagal is passionate. They're passionate with respect to what we do in Nigeria, passionate with respect to the investments they're making in RAC Center, and the investments we need to make, significant investments we need to make to grow. So with respect to the ecosystem in Nigeria, I do think competition is good. I think an expanded marketplace is good, but it doesn't mean we will not continue to strive to set our own chart our own way, and let so far others follow. That's fine. Now, with respect to power, when we went live, the power system in Nigeria, even in the local environment, was not trusted. We put the investment in making sure that we had our own reliable generating capability. And I always say we're a power company. We actually operate as a power company. And I would run it as if I was running some Shell oil grade something somewhere or other. You know, there's a data center part, there's a power part, and everything is actually hooked together. So we build strong engineering core capability, whether we have utility or not. And it's something that we have very, very, very strict rules on enterprise and operational risk management around power as well, to make sure that we don't go down. And that facility we have is part of what has been certified by the Uptime Institute, you know. And we know the investments we had to make in even beyond the original investments we expected to make to achieve that ability. However, we are now comfortable with the utility power. We're undergoing a project right now. We're not just connecting to the normal mains, because that actually is still unreliable. We're investing a significant amount of money to bring 33 kV industrial power into Rack Center and building a substation there, with the expectation that we'll meet our power requirements now, and we'll continue to meet the requirements we need to scale to a 13.5 megawatt facility. And that is ongoing, and we'll be live with that by December. I look at the director of operations just to get him to nod. He's accountable for that. But it doesn't mean we will not continue to, we will just stand back and not continue to maintain top-class engineering capability. Because, you see, even wherever you are in the world, you still have to have reliable generating standby power separate to your utility. That will be the case. But it means also, we're not doing it to save money. We have the most efficient facility in Africa. There's something called power utilization efficiency. We're the most efficient in Africa with the facility we use. We never say something we're not, so we validate it when we say something like that. So we're doing it for operational risk management. So we have more choices with respect to power generation and how we can fail over and so on and so forth, and how we're going to be able to scale. Now, an interesting trajectory for us on power is that currently we have a couple of lines of 1.6 megawatts. We are growing that, okay? We know once we get to 2.5 megawatts, we can get into gas. And we have arrangements with our local gas, the local gas link capability to drive gas in. So we'll have 3 power sources in the next 18 months or so. Utility coming in. We'll have our diesel standby capability, and we'll have gas generating capability at 2.5, sorry, it's a bit technical, but 2.5 megawatts, and by the time we get to 5 megawatts, we'll be able to generate with turbine capability, which we know it will be more than the demand we have at our point of growth, but we'll seek IPP capability to generate back into the grid.
Thank you, sir. We'll take one more question because of time constraint. Let's see.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael. My question goes to Rack Center.
Okay.
What effort are you making to ensure that customers' data and infrastructure are being secured against hackers, malware, especially when you have a ransomware moving out? So far, I've learned that a company outside the country was shut down as a result of ransomware. And secondly, what effort are you making to move to the next tier?
Thank you.
Okay. Security, there are 2 sides to security. There's the software security, there's the physical security. And actually, there's also something in between, which I'll talk about. With physical security, we have 10 levels of security, okay? Including very, very clear rules of escalation to local police and engaging them if required. That's from entering a private estate, gates, and people say, oh, am I going to Aso Rock? But it's very important for us to secure the assets of our direct customers or other customers that deliver services from us, like cloud and so on, right down to the actual rack. In many, many doors you get through biometrics and card and stuff like that. But even then, we're constantly always looking at how can we even improve that level of physical security. You see, with respect to software security, it's up to the customers who bring their own assets into Rack Center to make sure that their software configurations are right. Ade Ewusho worries about the fix protocol and stuff like that, and firewalls, knowing that the physical side, he can rest assured that all that's dealt with. However, one thing we're working on is this, that we're actually working with some expertise in understanding what the broader systemic cloud security framework is, so that we can mandate and define the levels of security cloud providers have to meet, okay? Because it helps them, and it ensures that we also, cloud providers don't have issues. We're working at it. There's some global standards that are available for cloud security parameter framework. But we're certified to ISO 27001, which underpins the way we work and the way we operate with our own data and our own customers' data. So in terms of data retention and records management and CCTV video management, we retain at least a year. The standard has to be 6 months, but we retain a year. And for records management, we go for 7 years record management rather than the standard 5 year capability.
All right, thanks, Kune. I was going to talk around the issue about more players and increased competition. And I think the way I like to address it's seated opposite him is Mr. Benga, who leads the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators. That means more than one. And so if you are just one person, there's a finite level of capability and muscle that you have. But when you are multiple, then you can become a body, you can have a bigger voice, you can talk to your regulator, you can lobby and get things to happen. That is one. So the ability to be able to make regulatory and changes and co. That's where you need more players. The second is also it allows you to be able to open up the market. So, I mean, Ade comes from NSC. Let's assume there are 200 or 250 companies that are listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. What portion of those are in a rack center or in a shared data center? Now, because rack center has a finite amount of budget for business development, there's only a certain level of companies that they can market every day. But when you have 2, 3, 4, 5 operators, then they can attack the market, or attack literally, and open up that market and create more market, and then everybody benefits ultimately. And lastly, it's competition also drives innovation, and then the consumer then benefits. So that, for me, is the way I tend to look at creating more competition. Thanks.
Thanks very much. I have to bring it to a close, or we'll be here until 5 o'clock. So on behalf of the panelists, thanks for listening. I hope you found it insightful. I did. I learned a lot. You can't talk anymore. We'll be here until 5.
You mentioned something about competition. I mean, I'm okay with, well, I make key competition in the marketplace actually is Main One, you know, and in some ways it's complementary. Main One is a partner as well. They provide one of the highest quality cable links around through Europe. They're connected to Rack Center. And I think also, although it's a competition on one side, the location we have in its own way is also complementary. And like you say, you've got to tackle and build the marketplace to unlock the addressable market, and it unlocks the capacity to all.
Thanks for that. And we will get Funke Opeke to bring diversity. Yeah? So it's not just Tunde's voice. We'll hear my sister's voice as well. Thanks again. Thanks, my dear panelists. Thanks for your contributions. And I believe that's the end, isn't it? Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Could we give a round of applause to the... we'll take some pictures, please. Yeah. They really do deserve a resounding round of applause. One more time, please. Yes. Picture sessions. Yeah. We also need to specially recognize Rack Center for the tremendous job they're doing, putting Nigeria on the world map for quality and innovation. They have, like Mr. Tunde Koka said, all the certifications they have and recognition. It's not easy. Since they commenced operation, they've had 100% uptime. I mean, that's worthy of commendation. Let's put our hands together for Rack Center. They're also kind enough to sponsor this session. Can we have a big data smile? Thank you very much, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This is a 3-day conference. We start tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. And of course, the exhibition hall is also open. Rack Center and other exhibitors have their stands there. So be free to check it out. And then we would have a raffle draw tomorrow. We'll have the raffle draw now, so we can all proceed to the exhibition hall.
Tell them about the program for tomorrow.
Okay.